Welcome to a short presentation on investing in the next AI generation of startups. I thought I'd start with a quote from Andrew Ng, who you may know as one of the pioneers in this space. He once said, "AI is the new electricity. Just as electricity transformed every major industry, AI will do the same." And that's exactly how I see it. Just like electricity transformed every single industry, AI will, and already is, doing the same. So today, I want to take you on a short journey. I'll walk you through how we got here, the breakthroughs that changed the game, where the capital is going, how investor focus has shifted, and where we might be heading next. My hope is to give you a few thoughts, and maybe challenge some assumptions along the way. Let's start with the question, how did we get here? AI has been around for decades, but something changed in the last 10 years. And I think there were 5 really important moments. In 2014, we had generative adversarial networks, GANs, which allowed machines to start creating things, images, music, even video. Then in 2016, DeepMind's AlphaGo brought reinforcement learning into the mainstream, beating the world champion at Go, a game that was, until then, considered too complex for machines. In 2018, the transformer architecture arrived. Just to clarify, transformers are the foundation behind models like BERT and GPT. They're a new kind of neural network that made it possible to train models on language at a scale we hadn't seen before. Then in 2020, OpenAI launched GPT-3, a massive leap, 175 billion parameters, producing human-like text that changed the way we thought about language generation. And finally, from 2022 to 2023, we saw mass adoption, ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, Copilot, tools that reached millions in weeks and fundamentally changed how people interact with machines. That brings us to today, what I believe is an inflection point not just for technology, but for humanity. Now let's talk about what made all this possible. There are 4 key building blocks behind this AI leap. First, data. Tech giants like Google and Microsoft have access to huge datasets of human behavior, our searches, videos, emails, and this has been critical for training these models. Second, computing power. We have GPUs and TPUs at scale, thank you NVIDIA and Google. This has massively reduced the cost and time needed to train models. You couldn't have done this 20 years ago. Third, algorithms. Innovations like backpropagation, transfer learning, and self-supervised learning have made it possible to train smarter, not just bigger. And finally, open source. Libraries like PyTorch and TensorFlow lowered the barrier to entry. Suddenly, it wasn't just Google and Meta. Startups, researchers, students could experiment, improve, and share. All of this created a perfect storm, and here we are. So, let's take a moment to zoom out and actually look at the architecture that underpins our AI ecosystem. When we talk about AI innovation, we often focus on the application layer, but underneath that sits an incredibly complex and highly integrated global supply chain. It all starts with semiconductors, the core of modern AI compute. You've got your chip designers and manufacturers, like NVIDIA, Qualcomm, and AMD. These are the companies designing the processors that power today's large models. Then we move into foundries, companies like TSMC, Samsung, Intel, and SMIC, who actually manufacture those chips at scale. These are massive, capital-intensive operations producing the cutting-edge silicon that makes modern AI even possible. Next, we have the integrated device manufacturers, and from there, we get to the data center layer, supported by infrastructure companies like ABB, Energysystem, and Eaton, who provide the power, cooling, and electrical systems to keep all this hardware running. And of course, there's the utilities, the backbone energy providers that fuel every part of this ecosystem. Without them, nothing turns on. Now, zooming into compute delivery, we get to servers and networking, and here again we see Intel and NVIDIA dominating globally. Then we have the data infrastructure itself. On one side, you have data center operators like Vantage and Equinix. On the other side, the cloud layer, which most of us rely on, is overwhelmingly controlled by American companies, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. And finally, we arrive at the software stack. At the base, we have foundational models, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind. Then comes middleware, tools like Databricks, Datalog, Cloudflare that help manage, monitor, and deploy models. And at the top, we find enterprise applications, integrated into platforms like Microsoft, Salesforce, and others. Now, what's striking here, and I think we really need to pay attention to this, is that, with a few exceptions, like some of the foundries and regional operators, this entire stack, from hardware to cloud to software, is heavily dominated by American companies. And that's important, not to point fingers, but to understand the strategic dependencies we currently have in Europe. We are building transformative technologies on top of a global stack that we mostly do not control. And that's a key theme I'll return to later as we discuss investment priorities, sovereignty, and how we shape the next wave of AI leadership in Europe. So how has the investment community responded? In a word, aggressively. In the last 3 years, we've seen a surge in capital. 2024 is already breaking records, especially in the US. What's important to understand is that the US isn't just investing more, it has been doing so for 5 decades. Across infrastructure, research, compute, defense, you name it. Europe, by contrast, is still building its foundation. But the opportunity is still huge, particularly in the application layer, in vertical markets, and in areas where we can lead through domain expertise. Let's zoom in on how investor priorities have changed. Back in 2018 to 2020, most of the focus was on core ML platforms, NLP and vertical SaaS, chatbots and analytics. There was a strong emphasis on accuracy and defensibility through data. But fast forward to 2024, and the conversation is totally different. Now, we're talking about agentic AI, systems that can make decisions, take actions, and operate autonomously. Multimodal systems, like GPT-4, which understands not just text but images, voice, and video. AI-native co-pilots, tools that embed directly into workflows. And importantly, physical AI, robotics, embedded systems, and the real-world deployment of intelligent machines. We're also seeing a shift in what creates defensibility. It's no longer just model accuracy, it's data, industrial IP, and deep domain knowledge. And in Europe, given that we can't yet match US-level infra investments, we're focusing more on vertical integration, bringing together models, data, UX, and regulation into one focused solution. From the investor's perspective, we also have to look at the demand side. What are corporates actually doing with AI? First, they're redesigning workflows. This isn't about adding chatbots. It's about embedding GenAI into the fabric of how work gets done. Second, governance is becoming central. In 28% of organizations, AI oversight sits with the CEO. That's a huge signal. Third, we're seeing reskilling at scale. Roles like AI compliance officers and prompt engineers are popping up in job boards. And fourth, leaders are adopting scaling playbooks. KPIs, ROI tracking, cross-functional AI teams, it's happening. But the majority of companies? Still early. Still experimenting. And that's exactly where opportunity lies. So where are we heading? I want to leave you with a roadmap, a journey to 2030 that I think reflects where investment, innovation, and opportunity are going. By 2025, models become modular. Easier to adapt, easier to specialize. By 2025, multimodal intelligence becomes standard, text, images, video, sound, all in one. By 2026, trust layers and governance frameworks go mainstream. By 2026 to 27, multimodal agents enter real workflows, especially in education, healthcare, and creative industries. By 2027 to 28, physical AI systems, robots that can learn new tasks, hit the market. By 2028 to 29, human-AI collaboration in real-world environments, factories, hospitals, warehouses. And by 2030, fully adaptive AI platforms that can reason, evolve, and operate across sectors. These aren't science fiction anymore. These are milestones on a timeline that's already unfolding. At Acclivity Ventures, we go beyond advice. We work side by side with companies to shape strategy, secure funding, and unlock growth. Whether you're scaling innovation or navigating complex markets, we're here to help you move forward with confidence. Let's build something remarkable together.